Hi everyone, my name is Chilyn. Welcome to our event today. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into it. So before we start today's topic, I want to let everyone know that for the musculoskeletal system that I've shared last week, if you weren't able to listen to my last week's sharing, or if you want to refer back, it's on ELKEN Story, the YouTube channel, and there are a lot of languages which you can check it out and you can check it out. So today we are talking about excretory system. And actually, like, think about it, like what excretory organs do, that's the first that I'm sorry, what's the first thing that pops into your mind when we say excretory system? So actually, we have a lot of excretory organs like our liver, our intestines, our kidneys, and etc. So actually, all of these can help you to detoxify. And it's not just about whether if you can use the restroom or you have bowel movement, it's more than that. So today, let us have a look at our excretory system. And so we know that our largest intestines is to accumulate the stools, right? But actually, it also helps to absorb water. And so besides water, it also absorbs electrolytes such as sodium or the component that salt contains, or like potassium. So there are also other types, but these are the two main types. And so why does it absorb water? Well, because the water is absorbed so that the food that we digested, the stool, can be formed. And so it occurs after the large intestine absorbs the water. So, and it will form and accumulate it into stool. And so it will be stored in our large intestine. So when the time comes, it will come out when we have bowel movement. So besides defecation, absorbing water and electrolytes, the large intestine is also responsible for absorbing certain nutrients. Actually, our large intestines can also produce nutrients. Some nutrients that our body can produce, such as vitamin K, some vitamin Bs, or short-chain fatty acids. And all these are formed inside our large intestines. And through the many live bacteria in our large intestines, which are bacteria, but the good type. So those live bacteria would break down certain food that we eat, especially carbs, which is something that other parts of our body can break down. So when it is digested, it reaches the large intestines. It needs the live bacteria to help it break down and produce the vitamin K, vitamin Bs, and short-chain fatty acids. And vitamin K and B vitamins has its own functions. But for short-chain fatty acids, many studies shown that it can regulate fat metabolism by increasing fat burning and decreasing fat storage. And this is why if your digestion system is weak, or when you have constipation, you would gain weight easily. And it actually has something to do with our large intestines' inability to produce short-chain fatty acids. So how can we tell whether if our bowel is healthy? And here are some questions you can ask yourself. How frequent is your bowel movement? How many times a day or a week do you use the bathroom? And actually, normal bowel movement frequency should be about 1 to 3 times a day. But having more than 3 bowel movements does not necessarily mean it's good. It might actually be because you have diarrhea. So you should at least have 1 bowel movement for every other day. And if you're unable to have bowel movement for at least once for every 2 days, and if this goes on for a long period of time, you might be having some serious constipation and you might need to go to the doctors for it. So the second one, you can also tell whether your bowel is healthy through your stool condition. And most of us would think that constipation means that you don't poop at all. But actually, if your stool does doesn't come out smoothly and you have to strain and squeeze really hard in order for yourself to poop, actually that is considered constipation as well. So let's look at this diagram on the right, where it shows the many types of stool conditions. And so the first threes and the last threes are actually all unhealthy. And only the middle is healthy, as it is smooth and shaped a bit like banana. And if your stool condition is like the first three ones, it means that you are dehydrated. So only the middle one is healthy, as it is smooth and shaped a bit like a banana. And the last three is because you're too hydrated and that your large intestine is unable to absorb it well. And this usually occurs when you eat something wrong and have diarrhea, or when there's some issue with your digestion. So there's another way to tell whether you're constipated. So even if you have bowel movement, but after using the restroom, you always have abdominal discomfort, as if the stool hasn't been completely eliminated or have flatulence. Well, all these indicates an unhealthy bowel and heavy constipation. And even if you think that you have already pooped and that is good enough, but actually it means that your bowel is malfunctioning. So that is why I say that even if you do poop, that doesn't mean that you don't have constipation. And also those who are constipated might be putting too much pressure. So this causes anal bleeding or fissures due to trauma from hard feces. So what causes constipation? The first one is our diet. If we are dehydrated or lack fiber, our large intestines would harden. And without fiber, digested food will remain in our large intestines for too long, and our large intestine will absorb too much water and form hardened and dry feces. And the second is lack of exercise. So when you lack exercise, there won't be any movement that can stimulate your bowel. So if you sit too much, or like for elderly people, or like those who don't or can't move much, their bowel muscles would weaken, which causes our bowel to not function properly. So actually, constipation, our bowel movement, and exercise is really closely related. And like lacking exercise would actually affect your bowel movement, because your bowel movement, your muscles aren't exercising, aren't moving, which causes them to weaken. And the third one is nervousness. So if you're often stressed and nervous, your brain response would be insufficient. So as it is in a state of high pressure, your brain would easily overlook your need for bowel movement. But because our brain can analyze and process, they think that combating stress is more important than bowel movement. So they will leave other things aside. So therefore, you wouldn't have the feeling as if you want to use the restroom, as this is affected by stress or feeling nervous. So many people who are very stressful or like really stressed, and if they can't go to the restroom in the morning, they won't be able to go to the restroom for the rest of the day. And the fourth one is intestinal flora imbalance. So as I've mentioned earlier, our large intestines contains many good bacteria, but at the same time, there's bad ones too. So, but when your intestinal flora is imbalanced, you will have more bad bacteria than the good ones. And the main reason is because of, as what I've mentioned earlier, your insufficient dietary fiber, and have like a diet that is high in sugar fats. So actually, fiber is a type of carbs. So if you eat carbs that's not soluble, it might affect you as well. So, and if you drink a lot of alcohol and you do not replenish on good live bacteria, your intestinal flora would be imbalanced, which makes your large intestine imbalanced too. The fifth one is medicine. So let's say you eat iron supplement where the absorption tends to be weaker. And if it remains in your large intestines, it would cause constipation. And another one is when you consume one laxative due to constipation, but gradually you will start to rely on laxative. And without it, your large intestines will be unable to perform its duty. And others might be consuming painkillers, antidepressants, or blood pressure medications that would affect our large intestines. So we really need to pay attention and be mindful of the medication that we're consuming. And the last one is chronic illnesses that has to do with our nervous system, such as those that has to do with our nervous system, such as Parkinson's disease or spinal cord injury, that causes our body to be unable to control the functions of our body. And other intestinal diseases such as intestinal infection, gastrointestinal cancer, irritable bowel syndrome, and inflammatory bowel syndrome, they would actually impair our large intestines as well. So lastly, diabetes, those with diabetes would also have like certain damage to their nervous system, which affects large intestine's ability to deliver message, and its muscle movement would weaken, and also those with hypothyroidism would also encounter these problems. So how do lactose and lactose S enhance bowel movement? So like some people would be like, oh, I already drank a lot of water, I already ate a lot of veggies, a lot of fruits, but I'm still unable to go to the bathroom and I still have constipation. So how do lactose and lactose S enhance bowel movement? So as we have mentioned earlier, we have constipation because of our inability to have bowel movement. So these two products contain lactose. It's a type of carbohydrates, and as mentioned earlier, there are some bacteria that can break down sugars, and lactose is one of those. So actually, lactose is something that live bacteria likes to eat. And as it enters the large intestines, it can be fermented by live bacteria, and the fermentation produces carbon dioxide, which is a type of gas, and then it would expand intestinal walls. So we can say that it's a natural expansion tool. So when it expands our intestinal walls, it would put pressure on the walls, which stimulates bowel movement. So if you eat these type of supplements, it's actually not like a detox medicine or detox supplement. It relies on the live bacteria and the fermentation that produces to carbon dioxide and expands, which makes elimination of stool to occur more smoothly. Second question, besides stimulating our bowel movement, how do lactose and lactose S improve intestinal environment? So intestinal environment is like whether our intestinal flora is balanced or imbalanced. So that is what we'll be talking about. And actually, lactose and lactose S is a bit different from each other. So this product, lactose, contains GOS, and which is also a type of carbohydrates. Actually, bacteria, as mentioned earlier, loves sugar, and GOS is a food for good bacteria, but bad bacteria don't like it as much. So good bacteria is known as live bacteria, and it likes the bifidobacteria and the lactobacillus that often appears in our large intestines. And these two are the live bacteria that can be found in our large intestines. So why do we need to give the why do we need to give food to the good bacteria? This is so that we can cultivate more good bacteria and multiply it, because the bad bacteria doesn't like it, right? So it wouldn't eat it, and if it doesn't eat it, it wouldn't grow, right? So in order to multiply the live bacteria, we need to cultivate them by giving them GOS, so that these live bacteria can grow and you can foster a more balanced gut environment. So why did we choose GOS? This is because it's acid and heat resistant, because as we pass this through our stomach is actually very acidic. So if we need our GOS to get to our large intestines so that it can be consumed by the live bacteria, we need it to be able to withstand acid and heat. And besides being a food for good bacteria, GOS can also increase fecal water content, which also allows feces to have more water content, preventing heart stools, which promotes a more comfortable bowel movement. And so lactose S is slightly different as probiotic is added. And not only does it directly provide food for good bacteria, but it also replenishes good bacteria for large intestines to balance out your gut environment. And the quality of the probiotics needs to be paid attention to, and to see if it can resist acid and heat. Because as I've said, our stomach is very acidic, and if you consume probiotics in like a normal way, it won't be able to reach your large intestines. It won't be able to pass through the stomach alive. So because our stomach has a really harsh environment, and it would kill the bacteria. So sometimes when we eat food that contains bacteria, we don't get affected by it, as our stomach has stomach acid that can kill it. So if we want to consume live bacteria and have it reach our large intestines alive, it requires some special technology. And so the technology is known as PET, probiotic encapsulated technology. So this technology allows probiotic to be acid resistant and allows it to reach large intestine alive and to be able to flourish. And this is why we chose a probiotic known as Bifidobacterium longum, which is a type of flora that are meant for guts. And actually there are many types of probiotic. Some are for digestive, some are for immune system, and etc. But in lactose S, we chose Bifidobacterium longum because that's most commonly found in our digestive system and is also one of the types that we really need. And after listening to what are the differences between lactose S and lactose, how do I choose between the two? So based on earlier analysis, we know that lactose has GOS while lactose S has probiotic. And besides these two, they're different in ways that lactose contains soy powder. And after being metabolized by our body, the soy powder would form into soy powder metabolites. When these metabolites reaches our large intestine, it can stimulate the nerve of the intestinal wall. And as mentioned earlier, the reason why we have no peristalsis is because the nerves aren't able to deliver the message. And this is why some people's guts becomes very lazy, or there won't be any peristalsis, and hence why we have constipation. So soy powder metabolites can stimulate the nerve of intestinal wall and increase peristalsis, which helps with us to poop. And as for lactose S, it contains something that can be found in lactose, which is dextrin. And dextrin is a water-soluble fiber. Fiber can be soluble or insoluble. When soluble fiber absorbs water, it becomes thick and gel-like, and it somewhat has the function of a sponge. It can absorb some dirty stuff, and it can be eliminated from our body through feces. Dextrin can wash off the internal lining of the colon of our intestines, such as stubborn stools. So this is a very good detoxification effect, as it can absorb the toxins in our intestines and be eliminated from our body through feces. Now let's summarize the differences between the two. So lactose S can be differentiated by its efficacy, as it has a stronger effect. As for lactose, it has a milder effect. So just like when you eat spicy food, the spiciness can be categorized into mild, spicy, very spicy, or etc. So lactose S also differs as it is blueberry in flavor, and it contains dextrin, and it also has bifidobacterium longum, which can be found in lactose. As it has a stronger effect, it's more suitable for individuals who has difficulties in passing motion. So those with this problem can first consume lactose S to stimulate bowel movement and balance out the live bacteria in our gut. As for lactose, it has a milder effect and is kiwi and pineapple flavor. It differs as it contains GOS and soy powder, which can't be found in lactose S. As it is a milder version, it is suitable for those who doesn't have any severe issues with passing motion, or those who just needs to have a once a week maintenance to maintain a healthy bowel movement, so as to detoxify our guts every once in a while. So the soy powder can stimulate the peristalsis and our bowel movement. So in general, lactose is suitable for those who just need a once a week maintenance. But so like many people actually started off from lactose S and then they move on to lactose. So lastly, a reminder for everyone. Supplements are still supplements. We still need to change the habits that we have that made us unhealthy. So besides consuming supplements that helps with our excretory system, we need to change some bad habits, such as diet. We need to drink more water and not just chugging it, but consume bit by bit throughout the day so that we can actually absorb it. And so then second is exercise, and not telling you to do any extreme ones, but actually you're supposed to do some calm and relaxed ones, such as yoga, stretching, and jogging, because it can massage your guts and stimulate peristalsis. And third, if you know that you get nervous easily, you should find ways to overcome it. Maybe you can play some music, drink some tea, or just wake up earlier so that you can have a peaceful morning and not a rushed morning, as you might miss the best timing to poop. So lastly is we should balance out our intestinal flora. So besides what we mentioned earlier, where you have to eat more fiber, eat less sugar, cut on unhealthy fats, and drink less alcohol. So all these benefits a balanced intestinal flora. That's it for my sharing. Thank you.